So many times we talk about protein and all of the things that make the wheat crop. Brian, where are we with the 2020 wheat crop that was just harvested?
Yeah, so everything I'm seeing coming in, especially from the central and northern part of the state, has had some excellent yields, above average yields. We've had above average test weights and below average proteins. When you look at the southern part of the state, it was really a mixed bag. Seeing a lot of freeze damage, a lot of issues around there. So some good yields, some poor yields. But overall, you know, as we move in our center part, we had a really good season, and the biggest talking point right now is that high test weight and low protein.
What does that really mean? I mean, we always hear we're not making our protein numbers and test weights are up. Yeah. What does that mean from a plant standpoint?
So when we first look at it, just to talk about the terms, test weight is really the size of the wheat berry. Every grain or every berry has a size, and to look at standardization, a bushel of wheat weighs 60 pounds, and that's an old standard form. But we can measure of a test weight, like a test weight of wheat of 60 means it's a standard form, or it's that standard size. Okay. Smaller test weight, a smaller number like a 58 test weight pound, means you have smaller berries. The berry is not to that uniform. And so what we cut this year was higher test weight, 63 pounds, 64, 65, meaning it had plumper berries. And so you took less berries to make a volume, because it's a larger berry form. That larger test weight means it has more starches in that berry. Protein, on the other hand, is the nitrogen content in berries. So protein's not like this magical analysis that we do, that we look at the proteins and stuff in the grain. We actually look at nitrogen content in the grain and multiply it by a given factor. So think of it as test weight as how much starch, the volume of starch that we're getting into a berry, and protein is how much nitrogen is in that berry.
When it comes down to it, are there mechanics in there that make for a better protein or a better test weight whenever the grower has the wheat in the field?
It's really, both of them are very dependent upon environment. So test weight is about putting those carbohydrates, that starch, into the berries, and that means the plant has to be photosynthetically active, has to have good canopy coverage, and it's not under stress. So starch laid into the berry is limited by the ability for the plant to put it into the berry, and it gets limited when we have hot, dry conditions. So we'll see in a drought year where we have really hot, dry conditions that we have shrunken berries, we don't have big test weights, we have low test weights, and so the starch isn't in. On the flip side, on the proteins or the nitrogen, it's really about how much nitrogen is available. And since protein is a percentage, test weight is more of a volume or a total, protein's percentage. When we have more volume and the same amount of nitrogen, their percentage can go down. So we often see that when test weights go up, protein goes down, because that protein, the nitrogen, is diluted, because the plant has the same amount of access to nitrogen whether it has a small berry or a large berry. Okay. And so given that it has a larger test weight but the same amount of nitrogen it has access to, it's typically going to see lower proteins. Okay. We can't manage for test weight, really. I mean, there's some varieties that we could look at, but test weight's heavily environment. Protein, on the other hand, while still heavily influenced by environment because it's influenced by the test weight issue, right, we can influence protein, or try to influence protein, by making sure the plant has nitrogen at grain fill, because it's that last, from flowering to the maturity of the plant is when it's really putting the nitrogen into the grain.
And to that end, there are a lot of tools that you guys have developed here at OSU that can help producers see how much nitrogen is actually in the ground and being used, but also help them prepare for applications with that.
Yeah, so utilizing the enriched strip and the GreenSeeker sensor really lets us see what is going on at the time for that plant. If the strip, which is a little bit more nitrogen in the field, shows up, it means the rest of the field's behind. It really gives us a good litmus paper for losses. But it's allowed other producers to move away from pre-plant to making in-season applications, which moves that protein. And it's been shown through a lot of research that the use of the GreenSeeker sensor maintains good protein levels irregardless, because it's adjusting for the environment, it's adjusting for that. And some of the producers would use a GreenSeeker or the enriched strip later to say, do I want more? Because all of a sudden that strip showing up near the end of the harvest, it won't make me any yield, but I might get a chance to get a protein premium. And so utilizing that to help with the later applications has been a big win.
When it comes to it, there's still a little bit of time for producers to get out in the field, do some of the legwork now for the next crop. What should they be doing?
Legwork right now, 150% is soil test, soil test, soil test. Get out there and get your soil test information. Get your soil pH, because if you want to make soil pH changes using ag lime, you need to get it on now, you need to get it incorporated now. Make those plans for phosphorus potassium applications. We're not going to have high yields if we're limited by another nutrient. It's not just about nitrogen, it's about soil pH, it's about phosphorus, potassium, all the nutrients. So get that soil sample. Think about expanding beyond just a composite sample and taking a couple points in the field, getting to know your field a little bit better.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Brian Arnall. And for some of the information that he talked about and many of the resources, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.